Oh boy, what happened?
I see it. You're good.
No, but it's not showing my share screen again. All right, there we go. Uh-oh, which one is it?
My cat's going mental up here, so.
Did you feed him?
Well, yeah, he doesn't have children at home right now, so he thinks I'm his playmate.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm having all this is. I just realized I have two screens going, and if I do share screen, it won't take the one from the shared screen. So
You got it. I see it.
February 9th. All right. Why don't we just wait one last try here, and then
baby bottle.
what's going on here? Find. All right, well, why don't we just start the meeting? I apologize. Well, I don't have a flag in this room, so.
Okay, I have one in my front yard.
Okay, all right, so why don't we go ahead and get the meeting started, and I'll try to figure this out in a second. I'm going to call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting for February 22nd, 2021. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to give this one. All right, so thank you very much for people joining us. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of February 9th, 2021?
So moved.
Moved.
Okay, in a second.
I can.
Okay. Any amendments, changes, discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. I'm going to try this one more time because I have my little, oh, no wonder I opened the wrong document. So hold on one second.
That was code. That was code word for I'm yelling at my kids.
Okay, I can't find the slides, so I will just give you my update without slides. I don't know what happened here. So I think just real quickly, key things to note, probably the big announcement today is that the governor rolled out its next phase for vaccinations that included basically going by age, which is what we have been doing. And they are not going to be prioritizing essential employees or essential workers. There was a lot of discussion and confusion about what was going to be an essential worker. And instead, they prioritized the next category is the age 55 and up, and also prioritizing educators as well as childcare providers. So this was just announced this afternoon. And we're also of the understanding that the town will probably be taking initiatives to do dedicated clinics for educators. So there'll be a lot more to come out about this and how the process will work, how people can register. He also put out a schedule that included age categories going forward. So after 55 plus, towards the end, they will be eligible starting March 1st. The next would be March 22nd, and that includes age 45 and up, and then and so forth. Every couple of weeks, adding additional age group. So that's kind of one of the big things that was announced today. And really, I think the other thing is just that the town will be going back. We'll be reversing our staggered workplace schedule that we've been working on, where we had people working on and off remote versus in person at town hall. We'll be going back in person 5 days a week. The state numbers right now, positivity rates are around 2%. Madison is probably in the 3 to 4% range right now, but still the numbers continue to trend downwards. And we were fortunate last week, we had no new fatalities, we had no new hospitalizations or anybody hospitalized. So the numbers support that we're going to be moving to that schedule. And then we're talking about when we're actually going to be open to the public. And that will be the next step in the conversation, where we'd have open doors, I think, to public access to the buildings and without needing an appointment. So that's really kind of my update, except for the other news is that the Board of Selectmen did actually just approve a recommended budget to send forward to the Board of Finance. There'll be more details about that budget and what's incorporated into it in the next couple of days, but we're excited. The board worked hard to come up with what we think is a really modest, reasonable budget that focuses on important key services for the town. So with that, I will turn it over to any liaison reports or selectmen comments.
I have a couple of comments, actually, not much to report on the liaison side of things. But first, I want to thank the registrars and Nancy and Lauren for our first attempt at a virtual town meeting. We were breaking some new ground as a municipality in Connecticut. It really hasn't been done before. And while it didn't work perfectly, it is not from lack of effort from those people. They really did go above and beyond. And I was one of the people who was stuck in no man's land for 2 hours waiting for this all to happen. I think we all got to experience some of the challenges that are presented by this. And hopefully we're going to take away some learnings from it. Hopefully we will, as a board, discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that we can work towards making it smoother in the future. But for all of the unsatisfied people out there, please understand, it was not from a lack of effort that this happened. It was just, we're breaking a few eggs and making a new omelet here. And hopefully the next time it won't be so bad. The other thing that we've touched on very briefly that I want to comment and recommend that we as a board spend some attention to is the issue of minutes and publishing minutes, and how we make sure that those get done well. And I would propose, as a first step, we come to agreement on what minutes should be, and that we are explaining to the different boards and commissions and committees, that their respective chairs, what those obligations and expectations are, so that we are not only fulfilling the requirement of the Freedom of Information law, but the spirit that it is really behind it, which is that we are conducting all of our business in daylight and being fully transparent as a municipal organization. I know that that's everybody's aspiration. And when we miss that mark, it's not because we're not trying. So I think we have a role to play in that as a board of selectmen, and I hope that we will pick up the responsibility of making sure that that problem gets fixed. And then the last thing is, we received a lot of correspondence from supporters of the library, and I want to thank all of you who did that. It is always incredibly helpful to hear how people feel about the things that they're passionate about. There was one thread, and I'm guessing that there was a rallying letter that went out because a lot of the information was the same. And I just don't want people to have the wrong impression of the town's role in the library budget over the last couple of years. The word cut gets used a lot, and aside from the time where the library contracted into a temporary space and just didn't need all of the money that it had running the full space, the town has not cut their budget. Sometimes the town has not given the library everything they've asked for, but the budget has not gone backwards. And in fact, this year, the library has received everything that the town committed to it, plus they received additional funds from the federal government in the form of PPP. So their operating constraints have really been a function of their move and the realities of trying to operate a public space in the age of COVID. and not because the town has withheld funds or otherwise impeded their operations. And as Peggy just mentioned, the board did vote to move forward the library's budget to referendum. I believe it constitutes everything that they were asking for. I don't think there were any concessions in that budget. I look forward to a successful resolution on that at the referendum in the spring.
The nice thing as the library's liaison, I don't need to give an update because you took care of me, Bruce. Fantastic. One other thing I guess I want was the Aaron and I participated, so that you don't need to talk, on the facilities study on 219. So we went through yet another iteration of the facilities study by DRA. They did submit to us, I think, a study that's looking at 42 buildings, and the study itself was 450 pages. So a little bit of light reading for us by our bedside. We still have, I think, a couple of additional turns on the document that Aaron and I are contributing to before it comes to the Board of Selectmen, which I believe is in early March. We're encouraged by what we're seeing, but we certainly gave them a lot of feedback to think about as well. So I think we've got another meeting next week as well.
Next Friday. Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. Anybody else?
The town pension committees met last week. The committee members were satisfied with the performance of the portfolios, and the returns were well in excess of the assumed long-term rate of return. So the committee members were pleased about that as well.
Great. And I will say that the Board of Finance at its last meeting did talk about the fund balance, and we're in a position of strength right now, fortunately, compared to a number of towns in Connecticut, that we can use our excess balance to perhaps address some issues or problems. And we went through and talked about some of the things that are included in the budget recommendation that we're making, as well as some other ideas that they're looking at, and how to use that excess fund balance to be preventative from any future demands on the budget. So it'll be an ongoing discussion, but I think it was really helpful. And I know a lot of things that we recommended in this budget were things that they were very supportive of in terms of using the fund balance. So, okay. Any citizens' comments?
Gus Horvath has his hand raised. Gus, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's just me or what typically happens when you sign me in, there is a indicator that comes up on my screen that says I have to unmute my microphone, and I have it turned on, but for some reason I have to click on a indicator to unmute.
I think it's just inside of Zoom.
It's not the end of the world, but just to let you know why there's a hesitation between the time you introduce me and it takes you at my age a second or two to click on that unmute. Just a comment, Bruce was talking about the town meeting the other night. I only hung in there for 25 minutes, Bruce, and I decided I would watch it on Facebook the next day or something, which I did. I watched the entire meeting on that. But just of interest, again, going back historically, I can remember the first town meeting I went to in 1965, and there would be 500, 600, 700 people at it in the auditorium at the school. So I've seen it with, in full bloom back in the 60s, and now seeing it on the screen through Zoom. So it's quite a difference in experience. And I hope you guys, the state or whoever is responsible for the technology, comes up with some means of getting people to be able to sign in earlier, or some other method that goes a little faster, whatever. But I understand that you're still looking at as if you're checking people in at a regular meeting, where they're walking up to somebody that's sitting at a table with a voters list and checking the district you're in and checking your name and driver's license and all that sort of jazz. So it's going to be interesting going forward. Another aside is this is the second town meeting in the last few years that has had a quorum. And it's interesting, both of them. The main item on the agenda was the contract for the Island Avenue School leasing. I think you know what I'm driving at.
People like it.
Thank you, Gus.
Special interest.
This was trying to let us hang there for a second.
Well, there were 3 items on the agenda several years ago, and the first one was the lease, and 110 people voted on it.
Not in 1965. You're not talking about that meeting, right?
No, I'm talking about the first meeting. There
All
were
right.
110 people that voted on it to approve it. Then there was some time spent while they read the second thing on the meeting, and only about 90 people voted on that. So the whole bunch of people were not interested in the second and third items. The third item did not even have a quorum. The total vote was in the 60s. So, you know, people vote for what they're interested in.
Well, that's certainly a good segue to highlight the Charter Commission. And this was one of the things that was on my update that I didn't, since I didn't have it in front of me. But the Charter Review Commission, which will be talking about our form of town government, is hosting a public hearing this Thursday. And more information is on the website. I think it's at 7 o'clock, Lauren, correct me?
Yeah.
And so, you know, as you went through this experience with the virtual town meeting, and also as you think about meetings and the town meeting form of government, this is a perfect opportunity to express your views on that. So thank you for reminding me, Gus, that I didn't give that the public hearing.
It was in the Hartford Current edition tonight, will be in tomorrow's paper, that the state legislature is going to start holding hearings, or they have, but they're going to probably extend voting times and make it easier to vote with the absentee ballot. I didn't realize it, that Connecticut is only one of 7 states that does not have early balloting. 43 states have early balloting, and we're the land of steady habits.
Mm-hmm.
Stupid habits, steady habits. That's what it is. I get confused at my.
It's like a history lesson with Gus. Have
I
you
know.
noticed that?
Yeah.
It takes us a little tour.
I never realized that 43 states have early balloting.
Yeah,
There's
no,
only
that was
7.
quite eye-opening, some of the information that was coming out. And so we appreciate your comments as always, Gus, and there'll be a lot more discussion, I think, about how we change and the impact on the towns as they change this, because it is going to be a big requirement for our town clerk's office as well as the registrar of voters to manage more absentee ballots. So
yeah, I'm not sure, but I bet 6 of the 7 states are the New England states.
No, it was kind of all over, but I don't remember exactly. But all right. Well, I guess can we move on, since we have people waiting, I know, for presentations. And no more public citizen comments, Lauren? Nope. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to item number 6 on the agenda, is discuss proposed revisions to the floodplain ordinance from the Coastal Resiliency Commission. And so I know the board had gotten some materials on this. The Coastal Resiliency came to our one of our meetings in the fall to just talk generally about this. They went back and actually did have some back and forth with the staff to get their input, and have come up with some revised recommendations of what they feel is the right changes that should occur to this ordinance. So I would welcome the chair of the Coastal Resiliency Committee, and if you want to, Hank, if you want to go ahead and introduce everybody on, and Dave Anderson, I think, is here as well. So who's the
Sure.
staff liaison?
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate your having us at the meeting. Yeah, the people that are involved in tonight, at least as far as communicating, is Dave. Obviously, is part of our group and instrumental, and then Walter Welsh and Woody Weiss are also Walter's the head of the communications leg of our commission, and excuse me, and Woody is the head of our policy group. And we've been at this for a while, and Woody was really the initiator of the floodplain ordinance changes, but it was taken up and as part of what the commission's interested in getting done and moving forward with its purpose, just one of its purposes. And so we wanted to update the floodplain ordinance really to get it in line with what the rest of the state is doing, what other towns are doing. First off, let me just mention what we're asking for is that you look at it, read it, understand it, support it as best you can, given where we are today relative. I'm sure there are questions and things like that, but what we're really looking forward to is hoping that you'll consider moving it forward to a town referendum, which is really the next step in adopting these changes. Some of the highlights of it, it talks about the substantial improvement look-back period, the base flood elevation change, which is basically moving to 2 feet, which is what is consistent with what the state of Connecticut is doing and what some towns have done in the state, but not all the towns. It's relatively new. We're asking for base flood elevation up to 2 feet. We're currently that's a jump up of 1 foot, and it's only in along the coastal zones V and E and coastal A and E zones, which are really basically right on the water along Middle Beach and that whole surf club area and all that. It's 150 dwellings are affected by that. And just as a background, when we had multiple lengthy discussions among the commission as to what sort of changes we should recommend. One of this change, when it came to sort of the core of what we're trying to look forward to, was the one that two or three people, when we said, what are we going to do? We're going to submit the 2 feet, and a couple of people said, if we don't, we're not doing our job. So it's to the commission, it's very important that we make this change. And then there's another section in the recommendation recommending that the town engineer remain as the floodplain administrator. And then because we are introducing changes, we're hoping that we can revitalize the variance process, because there may be people that are impacted by this that have a legitimate case to offer some changes or dispensation or deferrals, whatever it may be from a variance perspective. And right now that's kind of a dormant function. And we're hoping that we can revitalize that. We outline that in our submission. So I'd ask you for any questions you might have. Woody and Walter are available, and also Dave is well versed in this in case you have any questions now, or going forward, we can always answer things as you think about it more deeply. Thank you.
So the first question, I'm hoping that the 2-page Word document that you sent us is the cliff notes to the changes that you're proposing in the regulation.
That's exactly right.
Okay, good, because that's what I read.
You don't want 450 pages?
We have them if you want them.
No, the look back. You mentioned that Deep recommends 10 years, and most towns seem to be going to 5 years. And I was just wondering if you could offer any insights into why we wouldn't just go with what Deep recommends.
Woody, why don't you comment on that, please?
Sure. I think that FEMA actually said you could go to infinity and look back forever. And what we're really trying to do is strike a balance between making homes resilient and not being excessively difficult to work with. 5 years, in my opinion, certainly having been studying this for quite some time, 5 years accomplishes the goal. And 10 years becomes even more difficult for our own staff to administer. I mean, to keep track of changes over a 10-year period doesn't really give us any more resiliency.
Okay.
People that have to wait 5 years to substantially improve their home are not going to do it without bringing the home into compliance. It's just an unreasonable length of time for them to have to wait. They're not going to do 20% per year, to get up to some number. So I think it accomplishes the goal without being onerous. And that was our effort. We spent a lot of time and thought trying to figure out how to make even the 5-year palatable. And that's why we came in with a 3-year look back on day one, essentially, increasing each day until it gets to be 5 years. And we arbitrarily said, July 1st, because we're in the end of February. So we have March, April, May, June. By the time this goes through the whole process, it might be done in June, it might be done in May, it might be done in August. We don't really know. But by doing it this way, it'll take us 2 full years to get up to the 5 years. And I think that's also a way of compromising and making this as easy as possible for everyone. We have to make these homes safer. We have to make them more resilient. We don't want it to come as an unnecessary shock. And that's the main reason we didn't go with 10.
Okay. What is the over-under on variances? As this starts to tighten up, do you think that we're going to have to reconstitute and reactivate this appellate board because we would expect more hardship claims?
I don't know that we have an estimate of what it's going to be. Initially, I mentioned as far as the 2 zones where we're going to do the BFE +2, that's just 150 dwellings, but the rest of it's going to cover a larger number of homes. So I don't really have an estimate, and I don't know that if Walter or Woody want to take a guess or a guesstimate. I don't really have one.
And Hank, you have a lot of experience with zoning over here, a long time working on town commissions. Variances are obviously a lot more common in zoning. The only thought here is, because this is new, we might have variance requests. Under the current statute that the town has, there is actually a right in the ordinance for a variance. But if you talk to your building officials, you'll find I don't think anyone's asked for one in the last at all. And the variance would have gone to the Flood and Erosion Control Board, and that board is not staffed right now with a full complement of folks. So the thing to think about is, if you're going to enact something as an ordinance that people might be concerned about, at least be able to say from your perspective as a Board of Selectmen, there is a place, if we've missed something or if there is real hardship, there's a way to deal with it. This is not just all open and shut within the terms of the ordinance. So that's I think why I want to do it. It does force you to have to think about, well, who would hear these variances? And there may not be any, but you don't want to wait until you actually get a request for one. Or I guess you could do it at that time as well, but the statute could allow for a variance, and then you just have to figure out how to populate the committee that would deal with the variances.
Yeah, and I would just offer my own comment is, I don't think that the variance process or the request for variance or the preparation in getting ready for variances is just subject to this particular event or these particular rules. As I've said to the commission a couple of times, most of the things that we're going to be doing or recommending now and in the future are going to be things that aren't currently what we've been doing. We're trying to move forward and be forward thinking and looking to the future, as opposed to, okay, we're okay where we are today. Even if we are okay where we are today, that's right. We don't spend a lot of time on where we are today. We think more in terms of where we're going to go. And so whether it's variances to these particular subjects or others in the future, I think it would be to our benefit, to the town's benefit, to have a variance option for what may come.
Hank, I'm interested just in the process that you guys went through, the deliberation process, but recognizing you landed at the 2-foot flood elevation level. Was there a deliberation on whether you go to 1.5 feet or whether you go to 1.25 feet? Like, was it just a no-brainer just to get to the 2 feet?
Well, Woody will probably comment on this, but I'll say that we were consistent with where the state is headed there. And Woody can probably give us some more detail, but right now, my understanding is, and if you have a state-funded building or you have a state building itself, you are subject to a BFE +2. And that's sort of a directional requirement that the state's put on its own properties, but also something that I think towns will learn from and perhaps more will adopt and have already. And I know Woody would have a comment on that.
Well, and maybe just to build up my question though, Woody, and you'll probably
Sure.
be able to answer this, but forgive me if this is naive, but would we ever be proactive and go ahead of the state 5, or I don't know. So
I definitely think this is something we're going to need to look at again a year or 2 or 3 from now, because the state has codified a 20-inch sea level rise by 2050. And we're in 2021, so that's 29 years, and people spending a great deal of money on a home near the water certainly would hope that it would last longer than 29 years. So 2 feet is really the minimum, as you just suggested. It is a minimum, but again, we're gonna phase this. I think the right way to do it is to phase it in. Would I like to see 3 or 4 feet? Yeah, but I don't even think we figured out how to do that, how it would look, what we would allow to be under the BFE, plus, whatever the freeboard is, how much above BFE you have to be. So BFE +2 is 2 feet of freeboard. We just haven't figured that out. I think we should be flexible. I think that's why we did 2 feet only in coastal AE and VE zones. A year or 2 from now, we may be coming back to say we need to do 2 feet everywhere, that there are riverine areas that are seeing more flooding as time goes by. So I think we have to do it that way. But because the state forces any state building to be BFE +2 in all zones, not just coastal AE and VE, and any building that gets state assistance or federal assistance must be at BFE +2. So we're not breaking new ground. We're sort of riding with the state on this. And I think that, again, we're trying not to make these changes so onerous that it frustrates people or have people think that we're not looking out for their benefit as well. I think it's a good compromise. And that's kind of why we did it. And boy, did we spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
A lot of time. Yeah.
Could I add just one thing? Because it's, to some of us who don't follow this as closely as Woody has, it's really looking at what we're doing. The FEMA, which does the base flood elevation, really looks backward the past 100 years flooding. This is really a forward look, which is a little different from what we're doing to set an elevation. But with the guidance from the state, with the 20-inch rise, this is, and with sort of some support for you going to +2, we're in the right space for going forward. And for those of us who are new, we didn't even know what the word riverine was until about 2 months ago, but now I can use that in conversation. But I still get a funny look when I say it. But there is flooding on the rivers as well. And I think this is where we went back and forth. We could clearly agree on not all of the coastal zones, but the ones that are identified in the floodplain ordinance, which is before you. You can see those with the naked eye. That's the place where we have the biggest concerns. And the 2 is we have the most support by working off what the state has done.
Well, I know you guys have spent a lot of time on this, and I've had an opportunity to talk to them at length about some of these issues and talk with staff. And so a lot of thought has gone into the recommendations that they're making. But there is an important piece. It's now educating the public about what this is about, why we're doing it, why it's important. And Lauren, correct me, the next step in this is really a public hearing, isn't it? So, and then the board this would be just something the board would take action on, correct? We wouldn't have to go to any further steps after that? Right, because it's just revising an existing ordinance? So I just,
Exactly.
yeah, okay. So I just wanted to remind that there's not a need to go to town meeting or anything like that. I think there's more though that
Yeah.
we really want to do an educational process, I think, with the community about this. And so, maybe the first piece of this is, doing that public hearing and then having a presentation by Coastal Resiliency about why we're doing this. So that people really understand, the bigger picture issues that are happening here. Because you'll have people that have their kind of micro focus on their property and what this means for them. But then it's important to have the bigger picture, explanation and assumptions driving this and to talk about that at that public hearing.
I might have thrown people off when I said referendum earlier. I meant public hearing. It was my
Yeah,
mistake.
that's okay.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yep, no, that's okay. But I think it's important. And then the board has the opportunity to hear from the public and what their concerns are and what, it is going to be changes, but it is something that everything's going in this direction and the state is definitely going this direction. So it's important that we start updating, modernizing, and being proactive with these things. So, so are there any other questions from the board on this topic right now? I mean, there'll be an opportunity, I think, to have more dialogue on this. But my thought was doing the public hearing after this meeting as our next step. And so any other questions for the resiliency team here?
Nope. When we put you guys together, we had high hopes that you would be productive. I think this is a great first work product. So thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you. And so with that, I think our board doesn't really need to take action, do we? Lauren, we can just can we just schedule a public hearing?
I think we're just in discussion anyways tonight.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and I don't think there's any formal this is what I'm trying to remember myself to have a public hearing. Do we need to formally call it or?
So it's always better to formally call it. It would have to be in the evening because that's what the charter says. You do already have a public hearing on March 22nd. It's to review the closing out of year 1 of the Concord Meadows CDBG grant. So we could add this to the call of that public hearing on March 22nd. If everyone is comfortable with that, I would need somebody to open the agenda, make the motion second, and then we can move it forward.
I'll make the motion to open the agenda.
Or
Think.
Okay.
Second.
I'll make the motion to add it to the March 22nd town hearing.
We got to vote on
We
opening.
need to vote on opening.
All in favor of opening the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay. Now we have an,
So now I'll make the motion to add the coastal resiliency decision to the
a
March
modification.
22nd.
I would say a
public hearing.
modification of Madison's floodplain ordinance to the
So
agenda.
Perfect. What she said.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
We're
So
all in.
we're adding that to the call of the public hearing for March 22nd.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, good. All right, so now we got a date to focus on, and
Great.
then we can plan out what would be part of that presentation. At the public hearing, we can do a small presentation, right? As part of the discussion. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, good. We got something done.
Yeah.
So
We got a budget
right.
done tonight too, so we're feeling pretty good.
yeah, so hopefully that works with your calendars. We didn't clear it with, but somebody from your, hopefully from your.
We will be there.
Okay, great. Okay, good. All right, with
Thank
that, I think thank you so much, and we'll look forward to kind of, the next step here. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So Woody can stay on. So the next item is an energy presentation from Woody Weiss, Chairman of the Energy and Efficiency Committee. So I'd like to welcome Woody, and part of this is really a more of a bigger picture discussion about, where our town moves in terms of conservation and sustainability. And I think when I got into office, I was kind of amazed to learn about all the things the town has already done in terms of its buildings. A lot of this has been kind of under the radar, and it has been Woody working very closely with Bill McMinn and other members of his commission with all these kind of projects that he's been spearheading at different buildings throughout town. And so I think as we move forward, trying to come up with a bigger picture vision of sustainability and conservation for us, it's important to talk about what we've already accomplished and then, look to how do we continue to integrate a lot of those good things into all future projects. So I'll turn it over to Woody, who was going to talk about some of this. And I know he's going to talk a lot about the library, which is a huge success story and what they've accomplished.
Thanks, Peggy.
Hopefully you'll have better luck with the screen share than I did tonight. For some reason, it just was not happening.
Well, let's hope I have better luck.
Something's happening. There
Yeah.
you go. We got it.
Okay. I don't know why it's not larger, but
You can hit
I had to-
slideshow.
yeah, I am.
Huh.
There we go. That's better. Except you guys are cutting off some of it. I got to move you. There we go.
We can see it great. We can see it good. So
Now
that's
it's clear.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I talked to Billy a lot about what we should point out and what we've done. And I thought we'd just really stay with some recent things and some things that are not just improvements that were made because of things wearing out, but of things that we've just done that were really different. So I thought we'd mention things like the 12 photovoltaic systems. So they produce over 10% of the town's consumption. So I think that's really good. We're going to put in 2 carport systems that have been, the contract's been awarded, and that'll go in the summer of 21, this summer. And they're pretty large compared to what we've done. So we'll be up around 15% of the town's overall consumption.
and just to step back, when you say photovoltaic, you're talking solar.
Well, solar electric.
Okay.
Yeah, because photovoltaic is the conversion of light into electrical power. There's also solar heat. So, you sort of have to specify which that is. So these are photovoltaic. We're just producing electricity. 3 years ago, we replaced all of our street lights with LEDs, and you can read as well as I, but 75,000 may or may not sound like a big number, but the old budget was 95,000. So that's an enormous savings. They come with very long warranties, and they use a fraction of the electricity. And the lighting is far superior in terms of color spectrum and nighttime viewing and things like that. All the schools now, and I think Billy's here if he sees anything or hears anything that he doesn't agree with, all the schools now have been replaced with LEDs, interior and exterior, and the savings there is really quite enormous. And when you talk about 800,000 kilowatt hours, that's 800 megawatt hours. That's about 12 or 15% of our electricity. So it's enormous. And it also lowers the air conditioning issues. And they also have no mercury in them, the way that we replaced lights that were fluorescent. So there's a tremendous number of things like that that have been going on. We're about halfway through, maybe a little more, replacing interior and exterior lighting in municipal buildings. Hey, Bill, how are you? And we're going to lobby you very hard to let us convert the town hall to geo-exchange. And when I get into the library, I think you'll see why I'm asking for that, that to be done. We'll save at least 30,000 on that per year, which means that even though the geo costs more initially, the payback is going to be somewhere in the 6 to 7 or 8 years time frame. And the thing to remember with geo is that there's no outdoor equipment, so you don't have damage from rust and mice eating your cables and all kinds of damage. These systems are inside, and the wells are sealed, and the wells are guaranteed for 50 years by the manufacturer of the piping. So these are very long-term systems that you're not going to be looking at for a very long time. And that can't be said about rooftop air conditioning or natural gas boilers or any other type of systems, because those systems have very short lives compared to a geo-exchange system. So even though it's going to be a little bit more initially, the payback and the lifetime, if you look at the overall cost savings, it's really quite amazing. And I'm going to jump right into the library, if that's okay. Oh, come on. It's not letting me change. Okay. There it goes. Okay, so I can skip that. You've all seen that part of it. But just looking at results. So we were given the task of renovating a building made in 1900, and then again added on in 61 and then 89. And we were asked to double the size of it. And the only way to do that is to kind of look at this as a whole project, not just a renovation, not just an addition, but looking at everything. And as you may recall, we had to actually start from scratch as a building committee because the previously designed building was well over the budget. And so when we took this over, we had to actually scrap that and start over. So we researched and then entered the Eversource whole building program, which allowed us to energy model from the get-go. And part of the way to do these things is to make a list of what's important from the beginning. What are your non-negotiables? And we had a lot of non-negotiables, but that allowed us to model the building, learn what it was going to perform like. And also, when we realized that, okay, some of these things like geo-exchange cost money, we value engineered at the beginning instead of at the end. It was a whole approach that was taken by this committee to bring this thing in on budget, yet with all these things that normally get added at the end and usually aren't able to be afforded, therefore they're not done. I mean, we have all new glass where we could put it. In the original building, that was hard, so we have additional storm windows there. But in the rest of the building, the 89 addition, all new glass, really high efficiency, insulation in the roof that was never there. And as a result, the overall building is 23% more efficient than if we had demolished everything and rebuilt it all to code. And that's rather amazing because the 1900 building has almost no insulation. So by doing this energy modeling and starting with the mandatory things that you're not going to compromise on, we were able to achieve that kind of energy efficiency. Eversource rewarded us with $1.25 per square foot, which was $41,000 that we could use to pay for some of the things that we wanted to add, for efficiency. I put the word anticipate because we're not fully finished with adjusting everything, but it doesn't seem to be any doubt that the cost of utilities for this building will not be higher than the old building, even though it's twice as large. And what's really interesting, I think, is that the ventilation requirements by code of a new building are so much more stringent than ventilation was in 1989, which is the last time it was looked at, require you to use more outside air, which means that your energy efficiency is lower as you use more air because the air from outside is either too cold or too hot and needs to be warmed or cooled. So even with all of that, we're going to spend less to heat and cool this building and run the lighting and the equipment than we did before. I think that that has to mean a great deal to you because you're worried about the budget. If we did this with every building, if we looked at every project in a whole building manner, I think that we would build buildings far better than we have in the past. This building uses less energy per square foot than any other structure we own. Period. And I think that that's really the message I wanted to give to you tonight. It wasn't just, oh, we did a good job, the building's great. It was how we did it and why we should do that in the future. So let me buzz through here. I don't want to kill your night. So what did we put into this building? Well, we have geo-exchange heating and cooling. We have 110 kilowatts of photovoltaic, that's electric. We heat the domestic hot water with solar energy. It's 100% LED. We can monitor down to the circuit level, which is something I'm showing you here. This is actually what the heat pump is doing, how much power it's consuming, when it's on, when it's off, when it's on a single stage or 2 stages. This is showing us, what the total building is using, what's being provided by solar, and what the net power is. And this is what will be, part of this is already being displayed, but this is what will be displayed on the cafe monitor, the big screen in the library, so that everybody will know what we're doing and why we're doing and how well it's working. Okay. I use the word geo-exchange, and I don't know how many of you actually know what it is or how it works. And so I thought I'd throw this in. They work because the ground beneath our feet is warmer than the outside air in the winter and cooler in the summer. And that's basically what we're doing. We have a series of 26 wells, and we move the heat, we transport the heat or the cooling rather than create it. And that's the main thing. When you have a natural gas boiler, you're not transporting it, you're creating that by burning fuel. We're not doing anything. We're simply moving it from the earth to the building and from the building back to the earth. It's classified by the federal government as renewable energy because we're not consuming anything. We're making the ground beneath the library a few degrees colder in the winter and a few degrees warmer in the summer. The net effect is close to zero because the building requires almost as much, many BTUs in the winter as it does in the summer. We actually have a slightly higher cooling load than heating load, but it's very close in terms of maybe tenths of a degree. So this is truly renewable. I won't spend much time here, but we have 13,000 feet of well underneath. Everything that we're doing with this building is monitored. This is kind of what the system looks like, and we can move things around and do things to improve its efficiency, which we've been doing regularly. This amazed me, and there's a few mistakes. This is a software project that I started about a year and a half ago. It's live and running, but it's got some issues. One thing I just noticed today is, where's my cursor? In the last 30 days, we did not save 16,000 tons of CO2. We saved 16,000 pounds of CO2. We have to make that change. We're still working on this, but what I can tell you is it's extremely accurate. 69% of the energy to heat the building is coming from the earth. If that's not eye-opening and awakening as to why I've been such a proponent of geo-exchange systems, I don't think there's anything else I could say. Whoops, how did I get there? The last 365 is actually only 2 months or 2.5 months. So we have to change that to read what it is and let it increment each day. But the monitor hasn't been up for 365 days. So ignore that. But it's interesting that over the 2.5 months, it stayed, we're at 68% coming from the earth, which is really amazing. And when you look at the kilowatt hours saved, 16,000 kilowatt hours. The system, we're still working on it to try to fine tune it. There certainly are little issues that we're uncovering and dealing with, but it's really quite efficient. Rather amazing to me. It saved $3,000 worth of electricity. Okay, the photovoltaic system is kind of an interesting thing, not because it's a photovoltaic system, but rather than our other 12 systems, we use something called a power purchase agreement. We buy the power from the people that own the system because we didn't want to put out the money to build it ourselves. And also because as a nonprofit, we wouldn't get the investment tax credit for putting up the system. The way we handled this is we included, from the get-go, we were putting PV on that roof. That was one of the mandatories, the non-negotiables with the engineering firm. So from the beginning, we were going to put this up. And as soon as we realized that we could afford to pay for it, we own it. And as a result, we got the contract from Eversource right here, where they'll reimburse us 10 cents a kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour we generate for the next 15 years. And that comes out to about 14,000 that we'll get back from Eversource. All the power that it generates, we don't pay for because we own it. So the whole thing here is when you're doing a major renovation, if you stick it in as part of the renovation or part of the construction, it comes in much less expensively. And maybe you stretch just a little, but by getting it, our electric bill is so small because not only are we not paying for the power it generates, we're getting reimbursed an equal amount from Eversource through the Clean Energy Fund. So when you think about it, it's amazing. If I had more room, I did the best I could, but we put PV here, there's PV here, there's PV here. This is a big array here. Oops, how come that keeps happening?
You just need some carports now.
Well, we're doing that. Yeah.
Go in that parking lot.
Wouldn't that be sweet? You bet. So
I've not seen the roof before. This is the first I've seen a photo.
Yeah, me too.
It's really, I didn't realize that was all up there.
Oh yeah, and the whole thing is that everything that you do should be looked at the project. You take a step back, look at the project overall. Look at the first floor, the second floor, the roof, the HVAC, all the things, the programs that need to be, that the library needs to offer our residents. Everything should be looked at. And then you value engineer from the get-go. You look at it. Do we do a triple pane? Do we do double pane? Well, DRA found double pane that was almost as efficient as triple pane, but 30% less costly. It's a win-win. Don't do the value engineering like most architectural firms do at the end because it came in too high. It's too late then to add all these things. Do it from the beginning. Come up with a plan, have your building committee look at it the same way each time, and I think I know you'll build better buildings. So that's all we don't have to spend any more time on this, except, right here, this is your solar hot water. You see those 4 panels? And we'll see how they work in the next slide. I guess a couple more slides. This is just what's in the monitor, on the monitor in the cafe now, and it just shows
Well, this might be a bit of a silly question, but in the height of the summer, it's possible you're creating more hot water than you can use, right?
No, we can drain back the water and throttle the amount of water that we heat. We'll let the tank get up to about 180 degrees, and after that, we'll stop.
And does it just sit stagnant in the pipes, or is it actively is it pumped into a drain somewhere?
No, we don't have to do that. In the old systems, you did. And the same with the old photovoltaic systems. If they produced too much power, you had to have some sort of a resistive device in your backyard to get rid of the electricity. We can throttle back now so that that's not necessary. And then the last thing I want to go over is what I feel are really the key points to pay attention to. I serve on coastal resiliency, and obviously eliminating fossil fuel has got to be first and foremost on everybody's mind. It's so interesting to me that several major car companies, Ford, GM, have said no more internal combustion engines after 2030. They're going to phase them out. So what are we doing building a building that uses fossil fuel in 2021? Think about it. What are we going to do with the schools? What are we going to do with any building that we touch? Do you think we should be even thinking about fossil fuel? I don't think so, not after the efficiency that you saw on the Geo. It just doesn't make any sense. But that should be our goal. We should start the project with that. We should start the project striving for net zero. I think we would without a doubt, were we building a new library, was that a new building, it would be net zero. Because no fossil fuel for heating water, and a third of the electricity coming from the sun, and other things that we do to save, yeah, I think that we'd be very close to net zero on that building. We should strive for it. Sometimes you can't achieve it, but you get as close as you can. Look at the whole building. Don't just say, oh, my boiler needs replacement, so you then decide you're going to replace the boiler. Look at everything. Think about what we're doing. It doesn't make sense to me not to do that. And I think it'll save money in the long run, because you'll do projects together that really make sense. I think we should strive to use geo exchange wherever possible. If you can't fit wells for some reason, there could conceivably reasons that you wouldn't use it, but there's no other system that we have today for large buildings that doesn't use fossil fuel. The only thing we would be able to go to are air sourced heat pumps instead of water sourced heat pumps. And that still would be better than fossil fuel. And I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just gonna
And then the last thing, which really should be obvious, is PV systems on all construction or major renovations. But to do that, you have to stand up and say, you can't put anything on the roof. And you always get, well, I got to put the air conditioning and I got to do this and I got to do that. We were able to minimize drains on the roof by having the engineers be a little more clever about where they put them and how many they have. They eliminated about 50% of them and made the other ones larger, because every time you put an obstruction like that, you lose panels, which doesn't make any sense. You have to start the building's design with these things already listed as non-negotiable things we're going to do. And then you'd be amazed. How many buildings have we built with this complexity and these kinds of energy efficient systems that are on budget? When we first got the plans, we said that we can't do this. It's not going to work. Scott was there, right? You were there.
Doubt about it. No doubt about it. And you definitely had your non-negotiables, which I love. I mean, it's proving its worth right now.
But I think it highlights that, moving forward, we have a lot of capital projects in the pipeline, both on the school side as well as the town side. And I think we need to have this filter as we look at these projects about what are our overall goals and objectives when we design these things. And I do think that historically it's been kind of an afterthought that we've tried to retrofit or go back. And that's really what Woody's been trying to do the last 10 years is take an existing structure and figure out how can I make this more efficient, right? Versus let's design and tackle every project with the most efficient thing that we can find. So being more proactive about that. And I think it's important that those values need to be driven through the whole CIP process, because it does come down to, cost versus benefit and long-term versus short-term. And so having to weigh those things, but having those goals and long-term goals and objectives there to drive us to make the commitment and make the investment up front. So, these are things I think that will be important. And I think ultimately, eventually we're not gonna have a choice, just to Woody's point. We're actually going to be looking at the fleet vehicles over the next 2 months. And is there an opportunity to start replacing with electric vehicles? Are the vehicles there? Does it make sense? What are the infrastructure investments? Because of the fact that, that's where it's going. Those options are going to go away eventually, the fossil fuel options. So I think this was a great presentation to highlight one project and what a difference it can make if you tackle it in the right way. And then I think we need to really take the lessons learned from that and make sure that we see them across all our projects. Rather than having things done on a project by project basis, it should be, done on a more holistic kind of bigger picture strategy that we would have as a town.
Well, and just leverage them as guiding principles. I love what you're saying, Peggy, because I think it gives us a bit more of an opportunity to, Aaron and I we're on this facilities committee that we're working on right now. And wouldn't it be great if these were our guiding principles to drive some of the decisions we're making for our facilities as a whole, as Woody points out? So not just a whole building, but a whole system.
Well, and the people that you choose to be on the committees that do these should be knowledgeable about all of these. I mean, one way to do that obviously is to have a standing building committee, which I'm a big proponent of. I think that the committee I had the privilege to serve on at the library was filled with professionals in the field that it was just. I mean, we've been working together for over 3 years.
3 years.
And I have to tell you, we all get along super well. Everybody pulls their weight. Everybody contributes. It's been a terrific experience for me. I've learned a lot. And,
I'm just glad I picked you for the committee, Woody.
Pardon me?
I'm just glad I picked you for that committee.
Well, I think that we'll certainly be having a bigger discussion about this concept of a standing buildings committee. And this is just, I think, further support for needing.
That's a great idea.
So that you have that cross fertilization across projects. Rather than
Well, and then
just
we're
the
not
committee
treating
getting wrapped
projects
up and
as one-off,
everybody
too.
goes home, right?
Yeah. Well, then everything's treated as a one-off, which I think if we could start thinking of things as a system or as all of our buildings, that would be pretty amazing.
The takeaway message for me is twofold. One is the importance when we're putting a building committee together of making sure we have the right skill sets. And secondly, I think we need to apply concepts like life cycle costing much more extensively, both in the CIP process as well as perhaps in some of our other purchasing decisions. It's always tempting to look at what the initial cost is of something. But when you think in terms of the long-term or life cycle costs of something like a building, the initial cost is really only a fraction of what it's going to cost to operate that building over 50 years or 100 years. And so I think Woody and others are leading us down this road of really making sure we think about the long-term costs, not just the initial cost.
I'm going to stop screen sharing now. Okay.
What's next, Woody? What's the next project on the plan?
I want to do the town hall geo. I really want to do it. It's a perfect building to do it for because you've already got heat pumps in the attic. You got 34, Billy, right? 34 heat pumps in the attic that need to be replaced. That I don't know where he gets parts for these things anymore. Where do you? And so what I'm suggesting is replace a heat pump with a heat pump, but instead of a natural gas boiler, go to the earth. You already need to replace the cooling tower in your facility there. So you're almost there. By the time you replace your boiler and your cooling tower, you're probably 50, 60, 70% of the way toward paying for the well field. But none of those other things last more than 15 years, let alone 50 years. So overall, and look at the cost of operation. So all of a sudden, you're not burning fossil fuel. You're spending way less on energy. And the system that you've just put in lasts 2 or 3 times as long. So that's what I'd like to do next.
Does that mean my office will have
Perfect.
heat?
It'll be any temperature.
I think I have literally the coldest spot in the entire town campus.
Yes. And that means I can start going around unplugging all the electric heaters people put in there.
Yes, it is. It is. I know it's in CIP and it's going to be a big discussion here probably next year about how we move forward with that. But the good thing is there is a good example now to point to, because I think what was just talked about before, the library was more abstract and we didn't have data to support that. So, but not to get distracted in that, I guess really unless other board members have questions, we'll have more conversation about the building committee and some of these ideas about, I think goals that the board would have about investment goals and for CIP and everything going forward. We'll have more conversations about this. So I think we can thank Woody very much.
One final thought. Can I do one final thought?
Sure.
I think I'm delayed. Sorry, Peggy. Can I talk or no? So one final thought. I think this Board of Selectmen owes Woody a significant amount of gratitude for all his energy, for putting into the Energy Commission and for the buildings that he's done to date, and frankly, the energy savings across the town. I just think in general, if we could bottle Woody's energy and sell it, boy, we could really light a fire under all of our boards and commissions and make some things happen that are pretty magical in this town. So thank you, Woody. I appreciate all that you've done for this town. And I know this board is super grateful for the savings that you've brought to the town of Medford.
Thank you, but my partner in crime that I'm looking at now, Billy McMinn, has allowed.
Yeah, Bill, you're pretty cool too.
I think that any mention of me without him doesn't make any sense, because he showed me a lot of what I learned in terms of how to do things within this town, and gave me the opportunities to do these things. So I think we work very well together.
Nice to have that partnership. Yeah.
No, I think we're definitely grateful for all the hard work you guys do. So we appreciate it. And I know we'll be seeing more of you to talk about all this. So,
Great.
all right.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Woody.
you all. Take
All
care.
right, great. Thank you, Woody. And thank you, Bill.
Bye.
Next item on the agenda, because we're getting, what are we at? 8:20. Okay. It's just discuss a possible refunding opportunity of existing bonds. I won't go into detail of this right now. I just wanted to give the board a heads up that we're looking at basically refinancing about $3.3 million of our existing bonds to take advantage of the lower interest rates that are out there today. This is a process that probably at the next board meeting, we would have our bond advisor and bond counsel present to the board the timeline, the savings, a lot of the details on that. Just take action to move this forward with the idea of they could go through the transaction in April, so we could recognize the savings in our budget for next year. Roughly the annual savings and interest expense would be, it's not a huge number, but it's always helps. It'll be probably in the $20,000 to $24,000 range. And that will depend on, where rates are when they actually do the transaction. But I think it's a great opportunity, credit to Stacy and her team of moving forward on this and looking into it. And so there'll be more details on exact numbers and stuff. I do have some stuff that the bond advisor had sent to me, but I felt, to me, this is a no-brainer. It's one of those things that everybody's doing right now, refinancing their houses and everything else to take advantage of the low interest rate environment. So we should do what we can to do that as well. So any other questions on that from the board? Nope, you'll get more details at our next board meeting. So okay, next item on the agenda, number 9. Can I get a motion to discuss and take action to approve the following appointments to the Ad Hoc Affordable Housing Committee? Sarah Mervine as chairperson, Matt Keller, and Chad Greenlee.
As a member of the committee that interviewed them, I would like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, great. Any discussion? Seemed like you guys got a lot of applications for this.
Aaron and I and Dave Anderson had a lot of interviews to do here, and it was very difficult to come up with the final recommendations. There are so many talented and knowledgeable people in this town.
Great.
Right. Well, we appreciate everybody stepping up, and I think this is going to be a really interesting committee, and will probably involve a lot of public, interest as well. So I think it's going to be a great thing. And obviously this is to complete an affordable housing plan that the state is requiring that we complete by July 2022, I think it is. So, all right, with that.
So what's the total size of the committee? Because weren't there other people that were also nominated from different boards and commissions too?
Yeah, they were, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I can.
7.
Is it 7 total?
Okay.
But it may be expanding potentially, but there's 7 right now.
Great.
Okay, great. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great.
Great job,
Thank you
guys.
for you guys doing the interviews.
You didn't have as many as charter though, so.
Well, I've got more committees up my sleeve, so this could be which one gets the most applicants, right? We'll have a competition. All right, item number 10, a motion to a motion to accept the resignation with regret of Bill Gladstone from the Coastal Resiliency Committee. Say aye.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
With gratitude for his service.
And I know Bill just has a lot of work commitments and it was not able to kind of keep up with this. And this is a very active commission. So thank you very much, Bill, for your service. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, great. Second is, can I get a motion to appoint the following individuals? Craig Becker to the Board of Assessment Appeals for a term to expire November 1st, 2023. Sophia Udin to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire January 1st, 2022. Carol Snow to Planning and Zoning Alternate for a term to expire January 1st, 2023. Bob Augusta to the Inland Wetlands Alternate for a term to expire January 1st, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Great.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, next item on the agenda is if I can get a motion to approve
12,174.90.
I have it right in front of me today.
Second.
All right, great. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, great. Citizens' comments. Any citizens hanging out there? Nope.
Yeah, there's
Two
just
hands
one.
up.
Okay.
Oh, no, two. Noreen Kokaruda. Go ahead, Noreen.
Okay, am I on the screen? I don't,
Yep, we can see you
okay,
or
good.
hear you.
Good, that's great. Thank you for tonight. I've been, I've got the time now, so I've been watching your meetings diligently twice a month. And I just thought I could be some help for some clarification on the Ethics Commission. Because over the last few meetings, I've heard a lot of misinformation, and I think it's going to help you. And I know you, Peggy, and Aaron are going to move forward with it, but it'll help you if we clarified some of the things that have been said that never happened. First of all, last meeting, it was said that action was taken, but we never appointed, no action was ever taken. So I've gone back and I studied the Ethics Commission for years. And I went back, and what I really found out was when the conversation really got going about Ethics Commission was the campaign of 2007. And that was the major issue in that campaign. So of course, immediately the year after, two of the selectmen, myself and Kathy Trow, sat down and put together an Ethics Committee task force. And when I tell you, we put together what people have called the Blue Ribbon Committee. We had Ed Dowling as chair. We had James Madison, Peter Metz, Peter Pardo, Virginia Raff, Robert Regan, and Linda Smith Criddle. It was such an incredible committee. They met 15 times, put so much work into it, did an 8-page report that they presented to us in September 2009. And they had recommendations on having an ethics commission. They went through every issue. They actually wanted us, which I thought was a great idea, to include following ethics policies in our oath of office, right along. And it's a shame we've never done that, and that we should add that, because that would be such an important part of that oath. And it would make people that serve, no matter what committee, aware of our ethics policy. In 2018, it was we were told that 70 towns out of 169 have ethics committees or commissions, and I would bet that's up a little bit, but I'm sure it's maybe around the 80 mark now. I'm not sure. So more than half don't. I called 11 of them this week that do have it, and of the 11, 2 of them have actually used it and met. 9 of them have never met. So it's been really interesting to see how the towns do it different ways. And as you look at the reports from the towns, some of them have really fine-tuned a major part of what we would think belongs in an ethics commission. But I left office, the selectmen, and it was presented in September 2009. I left office July 2011. We had never taken action. I've gone through everything I can find, and I can say that I reviewed everything, and I don't see any final recommendation or report or an adoption of the policy ever. And I do want to say, it'd be a shame to have a new committee out there reinventing the wheel. So I assume you folks have the document, it's an 8-page document, and it's got so much great material in it. And I've called Ed Dowling. He'd be happy to come and talk to you and present what he has and what they did. And matter of fact, quite a few of the people on the committee, I'm sure would come back because they put so much work into it. And it's a shame. We're now talking about, to the government study group, maybe they should look at ethics, maybe the charter group. The recommendations are here. And I will tell you, the majority of towns that have ethics commissions have put them in through ordinance, not through charter. Very few have used the charter. So I think you're really going forward should take a look at this as an ordinance because we should be doing it. This report holds our hands right to the point where we pull the trigger on it. And it's a shame it was never instituted, especially with all the fine work these people did. I looked again that, other than we haven't heard a lot about, I think the reason it didn't happen was after 2009, we didn't hear much about ethics until I really think the energy committee issue came up last year or whatever, and that it all came up again. And it became a big issue in this campaign. So I think really it's the time to do it. It's a great opportunity. It should be part of our oath of office. I'd be more than happy to help in any way I can, but I've looked carefully and I can find nowhere that any action has ever been taken since the day this was presented, and that was September 2009. So I know Aaron and Peggy, you're going to be working on it. I'd be happy to help you. As I said, Ed Dowling said he'd be happy to come. If you know Ed's background, he was vice president of HR for all of Yale, New Haven Hospital. But the whole committee was fabulous, and it was Ed's the one that called it the Blue Ribbon Commission, not me, actually. But anyway, I hope you will follow through. Instead of reinventing the wheel, you've got great work, and it's a shame this has been ignored. It really is. These 8 people worked so hard. And just like you just named people to affordable housing, wouldn't it be terrible 9 years from now that we didn't take any action and a report was out there and we were going to do a new report? So we don't need to. We've got a great report. If you don't have it, I've got it from 2009. If you don't have it, I'd be happy to share mine with you. And we'll get it to you.
Could you send it? Yeah, could you
sure,
send it to the whole board, Noreen?
Sure,
That'd be
sure.
great.
We'll get
Thank
it to you. And Aaron, I would hope you'd follow up at one of your meetings, either just you and Peggy or the whole board, and invite Ed. He's such a resource. It's incredible. But this is a great piece of work. You're going to be so pleased of what we should have and what we could have had if we just stayed on top of it. But it only comes up in election years, and we got to change that. It's got to be something done all the time. So I want to thank you for that. But it's really important that we get the correct information out, especially on something as important as this. But thank you.
Thank you, Noreen. We'll certainly look into that. I mean, I was presented with a approved charge, I thought, that had been voted on. So we'll go back and look and see why that would have been in the minutes. And like I said, our policies refer to an ethics commission. If you go to the Board of Selectmen policies and read them, it actually refers to sending people to an ethics commission. So that's where I think
it was never voted. It was never voted on. It was never acted on. But we have a proposal though.
No, and I think it's great if you have something like that. We absolutely will leverage that. No one wants to reinvent the wheel. So I appreciate you stepping forward with that. And Aaron and I will definitely, we haven't had an opportunity yet to do that because we've got like 10 other things on the plate, but we'll get to it for sure.
Well,
I agree.
I heard
thank
you
you.
talking about it last week. So, and I will send it over to Lauren and she'll get it to all of you. And I'm sure if you want any more information, Ed or any member, the members' names are on the report. So you can certainly reach out to all of them, any of them.
Great. Thank you so much, Noreen. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Noreen.
Okay. Any other citizens' comments?
No one else has their hand raised.
No? Okay, great. All right. Well, I guess then, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All right, meeting adjourned. All in favor. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
We'll see you on, I guess,
Thanks.
Thursday, right? The plan is to use that time slot for Island Avenue RFP discussion. Great.
And don't forget the charter review hearing coming up.
Right. Now, is that at the same time? Our meeting's before that, right?
Your meeting's at 5:30, the public hearing's at 7.
Okay. Oh, great. Another back to back.
You rock, Lauren.
Thank you.